How's it going, everybody? Today I'm speaking with Robert Detore. He is the founder of Correctional Health Services, which was acquired by Prison Health Services, the former mayor of Verona, New Jersey, and currently serves as the CEO of Turning Point, which is a nonprofit treatment program helping people overcome substance use, along with many other accomplishments, which I'm sure we'll find out about today. So, where does your journey as an entrepreneur begin?
Where does it begin, or when did it begin?
Both.
Probably began in college rather than at lower grades, and the more education I had and the more exposure to business and to the world, I saw opportunities that I was waiting to take advantage of. So I really would say college level.
And then, did you have any failures before you got into your first business? How did that work?
Not really failures, but attempts at businesses that turned out to be successful that was much more work than I imagined it to be. When I was working for the University of Medicine and Dentistry of New Jersey on their campus in Newark, I saw the opportunity to develop a fast food restaurant, which was an interest of mine. And I had three partners, a physician and two physicians and a lawyer. And we opened the first fast food restaurant at the campus of in Newark, UMD NJ campus. And we built the building, contracted for a franchise, which was out of Virginia. And we found that the first week that the building was too small to accommodate the hundreds of people that came to our restaurant. So I had to think quick, and we opened up a commissary area out of the area where we did all the marinating of chicken and supplies. It just became a lot of work because I still had a full-time job. So we collectively decided after the business was successful to sell it to a national franchise. And then I learned, I don't know as much as I thought I did, and started really thinking about if I go into another business, you got to think of all the aspects, and even project where you're going to have a very successful business. You're going to have the staff and the facilities to do the work.
And were you able to kind of combine things from that industry and bring them into this industry? Because obviously this is a completely different industry that you're in now. How did that kind of industry help you in this industry?
I think each venture you take and you learn from, and I think it builds up to when you do have the opportunity to do much more than you did previously. All those experiences help you out. A lot of it's interpersonal relationships, a lot of it's recruiting talent. All those things come into whatever venture you're going to pursue.
Okay.
So yes, it does help.
Yeah, great. And do you remember your first sale? And I know it's it's mostly contracts and Turning Points, but as an entrepreneur, your first sale or anything like that, how did that feel and what happened?
Two experiences. One, in the mid-'70s, I was CEO at a young age of a health maintenance organization, which was funded by the federal government, and it required to get the funding an extensive proposal competing with emerging companies throughout the country. We won. We're one of 8 in New Jersey who won the funding for that, and there was limited funding nationwide. I think that was one of the first real rewarding experiences. I think when I started my own company, Correctional Health Services, the first contract we obtained was again a rewarding, event, and that really gave me the confidence to keep going.
And you had to get funding in order to do that.
We contracted. Our contracts were with county governments primarily. They're the ones who funded all the health care for inmates within their facilities.
Gotcha.
And that was a multi-million-dollar contract over 3 years.
Wow. And did you have to, before you did that, did you have to build up any kind of trust or get in on somebody? Did you have to know somebody in order to get into that kind of thing?
It was a competitive process, so I had to compete with national companies. At the time, there was no company in New Jersey based in the company provided these services. So I was competing with companies out of 2 major companies out of St. Louis and Nashville. But I understood more what the client wanted than those two did. Those 2 entities did. I had a better understanding of the environment. I had relationships within government. So I think all those things helped. But at the end of the day, a committee had to decide which proposal was better than others.
And what gave you the motivation to kind of go and into this market with a lot of competitors? Was it all of that, or was there more to it?
Well, one, I think, for anyone, there was an understanding of what I could do and how I could do it better than I believed the other competitors would. Two, I had experience in healthcare, so it wasn't something I just pulled out that, that I think I could do or I didn't really have a lot of understanding on. So I did have a basis, an understanding and knowledge and experience in the New Jersey marketplace in healthcare. That helped secure that contract and preparing it and arguing for it.
So you became an expert, basically.
Well, not an expert, but I became knowledgeable, and I became more of an expert as we started running the programs.
Yeah.
And each new contract gave me more confidence than than the past, because people were believing that we weren't performing, because they looked at your first contract, said, that this was Essex County. What's your reference? We'll contact the warden, the public safety director. We had all good references. That helped build the company.
And would you say, to get to that level of knowledge, maybe not like expertise, complete expertise, do you think that apprenticeship is a very important thing, like beforehand? Like, I don't know, for example, working for somebody before you jump into your own company?
I think it's critical to work for somebody. I mean, Steve Jobs worked for Hewlett Packard. That's where he developed the knowledge, a greater knowledge of that business, as well as what he thought he could do better. So I think working in the business, and I think second, to have someone take an interest in you, a mentor.
Got you. And how do you think about uncertainty and randomness in business? Like, did you have any way of predicting that what you were planning on doing was going to work? Or was it just like out of complete kind of like randomness that it just happened to work?
No, I had a plan. I mean, part of the plan is, I'm not a one-person company. I had developed, eventually I had 267 employees. But what was critical, the recruitment of the initial employees. And what I did was I went to an initial employees, the key employees were a medical director and an administrator, a site administrator. I went to Washington, D.C. to their jail there, and I talked to the head nurse, because usually they know the physicians and who are the better ones. And I asked them, who do you think is the best physician in your facility, in terms of competence and caring and compassion? And she told me the name of the doctor, and I said, is he here? And she said, no. I gave her my business card. He did call me, and he said, well, I was recruiting him. He said, I'm not really ready to move, but let's keep in touch. About 2 months later, he called me and said, I'm ready to make a move. He was a very credible medical director who just enhanced the quality of our program and the reputation. And I did the same with an administrator, because each site has to have an administrator in our program, in our plan. And I recruited somebody out of Pittsburgh, and I flew to Pittsburgh to meet him and eventually recruited him. So I started with two people who knew a lot more about the business than I did, the operations, the daily operations.
So you had to kind of like inspire a little bit.
Yeah, and identify talent and go after it.
Do you have any tips on, I guess, pitching people on that type of thing to get them to join you, people that are better than you?
Well, a lot of it is we were a startup company, so that appeals to some people. Two, and other people wouldn't appeal to, because you have the finances to pay my salary, and you're going to be successful. So you're really selling people. And part of the selling is your dream or your program, as well as what compensation you can offer them.
Yeah.
It's a combination of a few things.
Right.
And they look at you, can I work with this guy? So you really have to spend some time talking to them about how we would work together, get an idea of how they work with the administrator or the warden or other people, and you detect whether this person can work with you. You get a feel for it. Somebody that says, no, it has to be my way rather than anybody else's, that's not somebody you want to recruit.
Right. And how do you go about spotting opportunity, and when do you know that opportunity is worth going after, and when do you know if it's not worth going after?
Well, sitting in this position at Turning Point, we got an opportunity. We got offers to do a lot of different things. Joint venture, invest money, whatever. I get my own gut feeling that it's not the program for us. It's a diversion from what we do. I also bring in our CFO and our COO. We talk about it. Most times we decide not to do it. because one, either we're unsure of the people we're dealing with, two, understanding the market, we don't believe it would be successful, and three, do we want to invest that money in that type of program with those uncertainties? So from this point of view, at an earlier age, these opportunities come to you. Not a lot of opportunities come to you at an early age, unless you're working in a company and someone's taken an interest in you, or wants to bring you into another company, because they heard your reputation, you're a hard worker, you're bright, you're this or that. Those kind of opportunities, yes, come across, but that's more performance-based. You never lose anything by doing your best in any job you're in. You may hate getting up every morning in that job, but you just got to think, I'm not going to do this for life, but it's going to help me get to the next place.
So it sounds like you're saying, obviously there's a lot of people that work on the computer nowadays. You're saying that people need to get up from out behind their computer and go out into the world and do something, right?
Yeah, you're right. I think if you work in a company and, work being you're on site rather than remote, you can get a lot done, you can meet a lot more people, and you can understand the business you're in better. But I think a lot of young people are locked into jobs they really don't like, but some maybe don't have the perspective, this is helping me build to something better in the future, and I'm not going to be here all my life. But what I learn here can be helpful going forward.
Was there ever a time when you had to kind of make your own escape plan from a job?
Not really, because part of my career I did, I built a company to do executive search, for example. I just decided I was going to do, I never really wanted to work for anyone, until I had to, at a younger age I had to. But then I developed an executive search business where I was recruiting doctors across the country. But I learned that because I spent 2 years in Manhattan, traveling to Manhattan from New Jersey, learning the business under somebody who was very astute and had built a very successful business. Without that experience, I would never have got out on my own.
Yes. And when you were looking at business models to start, how did you think about obviously you had to spot an opportunity and stuff like that, but then the actual business model, how did you think about that? It had to be scalable, stuff like that.
Well, in Correctional Health Services, the business model essentially was defined by the specs the government gives you. This is what we want you to do, can you do it, and how much it's going to cost us, and 100 other things they want to know. So you really have a framework to work with. The question becomes, can you fulfill that framework or that business plan? And that takes more than me. I had to recruit other people to bring them in because there's a staffing plan you have to fulfill, medical director, administrator, nursing director, all the way down the line. We had, at times, 40, 50 people that worked for Correctional Health Services under the roof of a jail and that provided all the medical services. And there was a lot of liability. We were the medical service, which means if somebody didn't get medical service and got sicker or died, we were the ones responsible, not necessarily the government. I mean, that was brought into a lawsuit, but we would be the ones responsible.
Sure. And do you think that the entry barriers that you had into a business like that, do you think that helped a lot?
The barriers to entry?
Yes.
The barriers to entry were essentially on the specs, experience or related experience. As we developed the business and competed in other settings, some of those requirements became more stringent, like 3 to 5 years operating a jail medical program. We're fortunate that at the time I started, that requirement wasn't there, because I didn't have a company that did 3 or 5 years experience.
Now, in your experience with delegation, what are some key pointers that you think about when you are removing yourself from working in the business to working on the business as a CEO?
In terms of managing other people?
Yes. So that you don't have to do things in managing other people.
Well, it starts with recruiting the most qualified people you can and having confidence in them. And then once you have confidence in them and they start working for you, to be very engaged with them of how they're doing it and why they're doing it. You just don't walk away from somebody that you hire in key positions. I mean, you have to engage them, regular staff meetings, regular objectives, timetables have to be met, and you know soon enough whether you made the right decision. And the critical issue is if you made the wrong decision, accept it and eliminate that person.
And what do you look for in those people? Is there certain character traits that you look for when you interview them, things like that?
That definitely, but experience is one of the key issues. You know, when I came in here, we had 9 management personnel. 8 of them either left or I terminated. So I was recruiting a whole new management team, except for one that stayed, and we moved her up. CFO was a very critical position here. It took me a while to get the right CFO, and my criteria was experience in this type of business. And there's not a lot of people with experience in this type of business, but eventually we did identify someone that had long-term experience in another company similar to Turning Point. And then it was a matter of interviewing, how they operate, what did they do at the other position, what were their responsibilities, what kind of obstacles they had, how did they relate to the CEO. But all that, you never know till they start working with you, whether that was the right fit.
No matter
how much I interview them, you'll never know till they work with you.
Yes, and is the process for finding those people, it's not just about like going on a website like Indeed or something, finding, job sites and stuff like that. It's like referrals from others?
It's partly referrals and targeted recruitment. I know successful companies in this business. I know he was there. When I first got here, I called him up and I asked him if he would come join us. He said no, he wasn't ready. But eventually, after I went through 2 or 3 other CFOs, he called up and said, I am ready, and I hired him pretty much immediately. So it's not Indeed, and it's not the ad in the paper. What is most successful is interpersonal relationships, referrals, and if you have to target successful companies and try to take somebody out of that company to join you.
Good. Okay, and you're obviously very well connected, and you know a lot of people, and I'm wondering how that all started. How did you get so good with people? Because obviously, you're the mayor of Verona and everything like that. So how did you kind of start your journey there? And did you read books? Like, how did you get really good at it?
I started in college because I was a member of the council, student council, and I always had I went to school in Washington D.C., so I was kind of immersed in national politics there, and I had my own interest in being there, and I think it helped a lot because I was basically at that time, I'm not now, somewhat introverted. So being able to speak and before students, the council, and then when I came back to Jersey, I ran for office in the city of Orange, where I had my family was based and I grew up, and I won 2 elections there as town council. It gives you a lot of opportunity to be able to work with people, to speak before people, and develop programs that people want in their town. So that helped a lot in business. It's just another asset that I think helped. And then when I became mayor, I had much more authority to do things that I wanted to do for the town. And we did some very significant, at the time I became mayor, there was 300 acres of land in our town that was up for development. And it was owned by the county, but the county wanted to contract with a developer to build townhouses and other and single-family homes. When I became mayor, I met with developers and said, we're not going to go with this program. Now, he could have said, well, that's fine, but we got the contract with the county, we're going to do it. Through a process of negotiation and his understanding that it would take a long time to go through zoning boards in our town, because I wasn't rushing anything, we came to a compromise that today resulted in more open space. They only built apartments, upscale apartments, and also they gave us $1 million to build our athletic fields. That was one of the, we tripled the open space component. So it became a much more smaller project, more open space. And as mayor, I could have said the council vote on it, and that's it. But I said we're going to have a referendum and let the people vote on it. And they overwhelmingly supported it. That was a process I believed in, to give people an opportunity. I had town hall meetings, and one part of my speech was, this is something that's going to be here in Verona long term. All of us have to decide whether it's the best for our community. So not only let's have town meetings, let's put it to a vote.
And did you find it more challenging being the mayor of Verona or being the CEO of a large company?
It's comparable in a lot of ways, because one, you have to make decisions, and some of them have to be very on the spot, particularly when you're dealing with at town council meetings with citizens who have complaints or asking you questions or want to know what you're thinking on a certain topic, similar to what a CEO has to deal with. You know, most of these decisions are people that come here every, you know, from my management team or outside. Either we have to do this or that. What do you think? How are we going to do it? Or we have this problem. What's the solution? So it's similar in a lot of ways. You know, and the other, most similar, you got to develop a consensus. It's best you develop a consensus in the company so we're all moving in the same direction rather than saying to the management team, we're going to do it this way, I don't want to hear anything.
Yeah. And where do you think that most of a CEO's focus should be spent, and where do you think it should not be spent?
Most of it should be focused on a vision and a plan. And are you implementing that plan, not only to be successful internally, but how you're viewed externally and the opportunities externally. So develop relationships and communicate with other people in similar roles that I am in is very helpful, because we work out joint ventures, cooperating agreements, a lot of that. So it's external a lot. Internal is make sure you have a plan, your team is working on that plan, and you're managing your team. And a lot of that has to be, we have regular meetings, respect everyone's opinion across the table. We collectively make decisions. If we can't do it collectively, I make the decision.
Is there a general creative process that you have for planning, or is that?
I think that the process is respect the people you hired because they're here to do their job. Give them a voice, and give them the confidence to do their job every day and to do more, and encourage them, but also monitor their performance. Are we meeting the objectives and the plan we we have on the table? You know, we're going through a strategic planning process now, which involves about 5 for our key management team. And we have a whole chart with a list of all the issues we have to address. And we meet each week. Some are assigned to other people, some are assigned to me, and we report on it. Any obstacles, any success, collectively, what are we going to do if we do have some obstacles?
So giving employees creative freedom is a very big part of it.
It's important, yeah. Yes.
And do you, I don't know if you do this, but do you ever give people the ability to like bring an idea and then benefit off of that idea as employees?
Well, benefit, what do you mean by benefit? Financially?
Yeah.
In a nonprofit, it's a little more difficult. In a for-profit, in Correctional Health Services, yes. Bonus, increase in salary, all those things were on the table. I think the other part of it is to thank people and to know that you have confidence in them. You know, a lot of CEOs never really say thank you, never really say you're doing a great job, and how you going, how's everything in your family, your life, anything that we could be helpful on. A lot of CEOs just expect you do the job, that's what I'm paying you for. There's a lot more goes into it. You want a successful employee or somebody that's going to stay long term.
Okay. Yeah. And what do you think is the #1 time waster of a CEO?
Probably most CEOs would say meetings. Because sometimes I have to attend meetings at the office. I'm not running the meeting, and sometimes they go on and on and on, particularly Zoom calls. But at some point you got to get to the point, and either I try to encourage to get to an end point, or I have to leave.
Yeah.
But not here, because we're very concise, and people know that I don't want to be here and continually talking. Get to the point. How are we going to resolve it? Or ask us if you need advice. And the team is like that. We're not time wasters.
Yeah. And then, what are your thoughts on being resourceful? Like, let's say someone wants to make something big happen, they don't have the money for it. Like, for example, the railroad in Texas, they brought together $15 billion. Do you have any thoughts on being creative in order to get resources? How do you do that?
Are you talking about in terms of...
If you get an idea, for example, and you don't have the resources for it, and maybe you don't know a lot of people, like, how could you bring something together? You're
very limited to get something done if, one, you don't have the resources, and two, you don't have the people behind you. So I think the key is that you have to have investors or someone who believes in you, and you have to have a plan that you can convince them you can implement that plan. And that's the challenge before people have great ideas. How do I get this idea done? I don't have any money, really. I don't know a lot of people who do have money. I don't know anybody yet that would support me. All those things are very difficult to overcome. So if you're working in a company where you see an idea because you're based there and you see something better, and you can develop a plan and a business model, then you have a better idea, a better opportunity to sell it to other people.
Exactly.
Rather than say, well, what do you know about this type of business? Well, I never really did it, but I think it can work. That's not going to help, you know?
So let's say you're thinking about investing in something. What would you expect that person to know about their idea? Like, what types of things would convince you? Would it be sales? What would it be?
Well, let's say someone comes to you with a plan. One, why do you think this plan can work? What knowledge do you have of this business that you think you can do it? That would be probably the first couple questions. The other is, I want to know more about you as a person. What you've done, what your interests are, how would you operate a business? You know, those kind of questions come into whether you're going to invest in someone. Because at the end of the day, you're investing in a person.
Yes.
You know, that person may have great ideas, but he's all over the place. He can't structure himself. He can't, organize himself.
Yes.
All those things go down the drain because nothing gets done.
Exactly. And now, what exactly, this is a weird question, but what is money to you? Like, why do you think people have a lot of problems becoming wealthy? People that want to become wealthy. Why do you think those people have problems? And what is money to you? Like,
I think I said this before. When I was developing Correctional Health Services and really put my whole life into it in a sense, over 11 years. The day they wired $20 million to me, money was everything. Until that money hit the bank, then it was nothing.
really?
Because I've reached the goal I wanted to achieve, and now what do I do?
Really? So like that was it. Like,
In a lot of ways, it was it.
all right. And
What do I do now? I'm a CEO for 11 years. I developed a successful business. We were chosen by one of the accounting firms, I forget which one, as one of the outstanding businesses in New Jersey. And I went to the ceremony they had, and expensive dinner and awards, and they gave us an award. So there was a lot of achievements during the process of building that business, and that's why 2 national companies want to buy us. But after it was all said and done, I'm not the CEO anymore. I sold this business. The money's been wired, and now what do I do? So I like to say it was everything until it was nothing.
Great answer.
A lot of people would understand that, but that's what I think.
No, yeah. What habits do you think people need to have if they want to become extremely successful?
I think it's discipline, and discipline is part of it. Organization skills and people skills. These are some of them. I find a lot of people have very good ideas, but they're not disciplined and not organized. They can't get that down to a science or to a program or to an action plan. And I think it's very difficult with young people who have so many other interests, and so many challenges in life at a younger age, to get them focused and believing in what they're doing.
Yes.
So organization skills, confidence, those are, and people skills, I think, are very critical.
You seem to be very big on planning, but when it comes to like business plans, like let's say somebody wants to start a business, obviously, like I don't know how you feel about it, but like, do you think that going all in on a business plan, like 90 pages or something like that, is worth it, or should you just it's just like something on the back of a bag or something?
No, today we develop business plans here. At one time, the business plan was the 90 pages. All right, went through everything, the financials, the market studies. Now, what investors want to see, because we deal with investors regularly here, they want to see a deck, which they call it a deck. It's about 10 pages, like a slide programmer, we put up on the computer, and it covers the marketing, the streets, the product, the marketplace, the financials, the implementation plan generally, and then you've got to sell that to an investor, equity funds. I recently joined with a physician who asked my help in doing that, and we developed a deck, we made presentations, and it's been stalled because either the investors don't see an opportunity with this particular physician and the product. So we haven't been able to move it, and I just said, you're not ready yet because you haven't, and the business he wanted started, he's running a business now. I said, we need more than one location. These investors want 3, 4, 5 locations. A matter of one said to us, we're going to invest in you, but I want to make sure when you get to 3 million EBITDA, then we'll talk to you. So a lot more had to be done to get an investor involved.
Yes.
It was a good idea. He's making it work now. He's successful, but he doesn't have enough volume or sites, locations. These are medical practices to interest an investor.
Did you ever have a business plan that you made, but then it like went completely sideways? Like in terms of what happened?
Yeah, we had one, or I had one, I would say about 10 years ago. We looked at a plan with experts, people that were, actually my partner was the former CEO here, so people in the field, and that was to develop a network of physician offices to provide Suboxone, which is one of the treatments for addiction. 10 years ago, most people didn't know what Suboxone was. We were way ahead of the times. Right now, Suboxone's only become in the last 2 years where practices have opened up to provide it. So we're ahead of the times. Nobody was going to invest in it. They didn't even know what Suboxone was. And it wasn't that common with doctors, practice in their practices.
Yes. Okay. And if you could only teach 3 things about entrepreneurship, what would those 3 things be?
Perseverance is one. Believe in yourself is the other. And the ability to accept failure and get up and do it again.
That's
There are
all?
3. There's probably more.
Yes.
More much is to have a plan, believe in your plan, and have the experience to back up that plan, or some experience with other investors. Those are the kind of things that are important to somebody, an entrepreneur, to move ahead in their lives.
Yes.
And there's probably another 5, but they're I think, key.
For sure.
Yes,
I'm sure there's like a lot of...
There's a lot of other, talents, but first thing is to believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is going to believe in you.
Yeah. For sure.
And believe in what you're saying, and people look at you, can I trust this person?
Yes. Okay. And that's all. Where can people find Turning Point? Do you have any locations that people can go to?
We do have outpatient. We have here we have inpatient primarily, and we also have an outpatient facility. We also own a sober home in Flemington, a women's sober home, and we also own a halfway house for women in White House Station. And in Pompton Plains, we have an adolescent treatment program for high school students. So there are a few, we service different age levels, male, female, and age levels.
Yes.
But here is all inpatient, detox, short-term and long-term residential.
Yes. And then you also have Facebook, Instagram, website, things like that?
Yes, we have a website. We're active on Facebook. I'm not. We have a director of development.
Yes.
I'm a little slow on that stuff.